Good
Okay.
morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome. My name is Jason Spiegler with Compliance Group, and very excited to kick off a three-part webinar series, which really takes us through the journey of JuneBrain and digitalizing design quality in a program with the Medical Device Innovation Consortium and FDA. The three-part series, today we're going to focus on the business case. Part two and part three are going to explore the implementation and the immediate value, and then we'll get into talking about a few months out, the adoption and the KPIs, the value. What has the business impact been a few months out from the program? So, some very quick housekeeping. We are recording the webinar. We're going to do our best to get this out in the next 2 to 3 days. And we are going to take questions throughout the webinar, and then we have more time at the end. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box, and we'll do our best to build them in and address them. So let's get into talking and meeting our panelists. And I'm very excited about this group. We've been working together for a long time. I'm going to have each of the folks go through and introduce themselves, but from JuneBrain, from the FDA, and from MDIC. Why don't we start, Sam, with you, and then Xander.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. It's great to share this information with everyone. I'm Dr. Samantha Scott. Everyone calls me Sam. I am the CEO and founder of JuneBrain, which is a medical device startup located in Baltimore, Maryland. We've been around for about 7 years now, so experienced a lot of the ups and downs of the startup experience going towards FDA clearance. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Xander. I'm from JuneBrain as well. So I'm the quality manager. I work with the team to make sure that our two products that we're developing are meeting the highest standards for quality and safety for the patients that we're going to be releasing to.
Hello, my name is Daniel Walter. I am a policy analyst at the Center for Devices and Radiological Health here with the Food and Drug Administration on a small project that we affectionately call the Case for Quality. Amongst the many initiatives that we have in the Case for Quality is our Advanced Manufacturing Clearinghouse, and we're going to hear a little bit about that today, along with Sam's wonderful story.
Hello, everyone. And again, thanks to Jason, Sam, Daniel, and Xander for inviting us to participate. I'm Joe Sapienti. I'm the Senior Vice President for the Science and Technology Group here at MDIC. I joined almost 4 years ago now, and here at MDIC, we focus on accelerating innovation and access to innovation to the patients and through the medical device total product life cycle. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. As Daniel mentioned, AMCH is a program within MDIC, and I look forward to having this conversation. So thanks for inviting us.
Great. And I'll go last. Again, Jason Spiegler, responsible for strategy and customer experience at Compliance Group. Come out of the MedTech, pharmaceutical industry and quality management, and then worked in software technology and consulting for a number of years. But I think from my perspective, 3 startups. The last startup I was at, I was running quality and regulatory, was 8 people in New York City. So I can very much relate to the story of where Sam and Xander are right now and many of the other MedTech companies out there. I just have one slide about Compliance Group, and I think it's very relevant and important to talk about our mission and vision because when we talk about enabling the fastest path to quality excellence, we're talking about doing this across the value chain, in design, in manufacturing, in post-market, in regulatory, in IT, right? Really across the value chain. Today is going to focus on design and design transfer. That's the focus of what we're talking about with JuneBrain in this journey. But it's about building in and designing in high quality product and processes across that value chain. And talking about making quality frictionless, right? I come out of quality. No offense to all my friends in quality, but quality in life sciences tends to be associated with friction. And so what we're trying to do with Compliance Group and what we've tried to do with JuneBrain, you'll hear more about it, is how do we take as much friction out of getting them up and running to leverage technology to really drive high design quality. So with that, here's the agenda of what we've outlined, the questions. Again, we'll take a question or two as we go through. But the first is, who's JuneBrain? Tell us about JuneBrain and where you're at. Why digitalize design quality? What's the business case? Why did you feel the need to change? Who are you partnering with and why? Take us through that story. And then we'll talk about MDIC and the Advanced Manufacturing Clearinghouse. I'm a huge fan of this program, and I don't know why more companies out there aren't reaching out and trying to get involved in this. It's a no-brainer to me, and I think you'll hear more from Joe and Daniel and Sam and Xander about their why and experience, and then we'll get into what's next. So let's dive in. So Sam, first question to you. Tell us about who JuneBrain is.
Sure. So, JuneBrain, again, we're based in Baltimore, Maryland. We're still a very small team. So we have now six full-time individuals, including myself. And then we have 5 more part-time contractors. So we're around a team of 11. For me, my background, I have a PhD in biomedical engineering, so I always focused in ophthalmology and neuroimaging spaces, so the intersection of the eyes and the brain. I'm also a neurology patient, so I have a neuromuscular disease called myasthenia gravis, and it's the reason why I started JuneBrain, because often from the patient experience, it's very difficult to be monitored between your annual clinical visits. So we wanted to come up with an objective way to better manage patient care, especially for those with neurological or retinal disease. So next slide. So at JuneBrain, we've developed this AI-powered retinal imaging device, and the goal is to make eye and brain disease screening more accessible. Next screen. So we take advantage of the fact that the back of the eye or the retina is an extension of the brain. So technology like ours, which is called optical coherence tomography or OCT, it can be used to monitor and screen not just for eye diseases like macular degeneration or glaucoma, but also neurological disease like multiple sclerosis and even Alzheimer's. The challenge we found is that conventional OCT systems like the one on the right, they're very high performance, outstanding technologies, but they're not suited outside of eye care settings. And that's because you have to hire a trained technician to operate the device. They're very expensive, upwards of $100,000 for the newer devices, and they're very large. So you often have to have a dedicated room in the clinic for an OCT machine. And most important from my team's perspective, they're not accessible to people who have disabilities or severe disability, which is often the case for people who have neurological disease. So if you have paralysis or movement disorders or any type of chronic pain or weakness, these devices can be very difficult to use. So next slide. All of this is really at the same time that the prevalence of these diseases is increasing worldwide. These are all patients who would benefit from better access to OCT, and that's so you can catch disease in its earliest stages, treat it as soon as possible, and ultimately improve patient outcomes. So next slide, our solution to this is called the NeuroEye. So it's a wearable OCT device, and our goal is always to combine accessibility with intelligence. And the next slide. When you compare our system to current devices that are in the clinic, so again, example on the right, our system is automated, meaning patients can use it on their own with the help of a caregiver, for example, inside or outside of a clinical setting. It's very high speed, portable, low cost, while still matching the performance of these current conventional devices. And then on the back end, in the next slide, we have a deep learning algorithm that takes these images from our device and it automatically extracts information relevant to eye and brain disease. So for JuneBrain, we have this single product, but even on the software side, the software is device agnostic. So we've spun off a separate software service. So for us, we actually have two planned 510K submissions, one for the device and one for the software. So for us, quality is of utmost importance, especially being able to roll in feedback from our clinical studies, even prior to submitting to the FDA, to make sure that we are mitigating risks for both of those products. So next slide, very quickly, the way it works. A person puts the headset on. It just takes a few minutes to take images from both eyes. Those images are then sent to our HIPAA-compliant web app, where it's analyzed by the software, and then we generate an automated report for the clinician that uh, picks out any significant changes in the eye. So we're not diagnosing disease, but they can use that information to understand disease progression, risk profile, and response to treatment. And then very finally, our team, again, we're a small team, but we have the expertise that's needed to commercialize an OCT device. So we're a hybrid team. A number of us are in the office, primarily our engineers and our clinical research manager, and the rest work remotely. And then on our advisory board, it includes neurologists, ophthalmologists, MedTech, business savvy individuals, and we're collaborating with universities, so that also plays into how we approach quality. But that's it in a nutshell, 5-minute nutshell.
That's great, Sam. Obviously, you've walked through that many times. So now it's always great to hear the founder's story of the why you created the company and had this vision for this product. So let's dive into the next question, and I'm going to start with Xander again. Why digitalize design quality? Why this change for JuneBrain?
Yeah. No, thanks, Jason. So, as Dr. Scott mentioned, we've been around for about 7 years now. We also have two products that we're working on. So with two products, we have lots of requirements, specs. Well, one big thing at JuneBrain is we do a lot of customer interviews because we want to hear exactly from the doctors and the patients what exactly that they need. So over the years, a lot of our design inputs, they may be through email, in Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoints, but they were kind of all over the place. So we definitely wanted to get a system where everything can be all together, and that's why we decided to go on and digitalize our design inputs. And as you can see, there's quite a few different things, other reasons why we wanted to go into this process. So definitely we wanted to increase the safety, quality, and patient experience. And again, now since everything is in one place, it's also linked. So now everything is traceable. So if there's any changes to one requirement, we can see if that may increase or decrease the risks for that associated item. Also, once we initially or essentially released to the market, we wanted to make sure that we have a precise and efficient responsiveness to patients as we get different feedback from them. And with that, we'll be able to see exactly which requirement or issue that they had and get that resolution solved but pretty quickly. Also, another item, this also will increase the velocity of our product development. Again, we've been around the last 7 years, but with the design quality system now in place, this will definitely increase our R&D process. I think it'll also produce a lot of different confusion between the team because everything is in one place. We're all looking at the same requirements. And if there's any issues, right there in the system, we can go on and, add comments and do collaboration. Also, de-risking JuneBrain's pathway to market. Again, one of the items that FDA, I would say that the number one item that the FDA requires is to make sure that you have a very clean design quality system in place. So helping us having this definitely does help de-risk the process. Also, increasing competitiveness with dilutive and non-dilutive funding. As Sam is talking to different investors over the past few years, this is a question that kind of comes up a lot. do you have a DQS system in place? So this is definitely going to help us raise additional funding as we get closer and closer to market. And then also a lot of acquirers. Having a DQS system in place does add a lot of value. I know we talked to other startup companies. Some deals have actually even fell through because they either didn't have a data quality system in place, or the one that they did have was not kept up to date. So yeah, so again, lots of different reasons why we wanted to go through this, but again, very, very happy to get the ball rolling and start using this as we finish up our final phase of R&D.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Xander. And I'm going
Yeah.
to drill in a little bit, and I'll, again, maybe start with Sam and Xander. Anything you want to comment on, and then we'll go to Daniel and Joe, for your perspective. But I know, Sam, you're having a lot of conversations with investors and strategics. So what does that conversation go like in terms of the questions you get? And Xander just hit on it a little bit, but how is this not just the technology and the use of it, but then also the participation in the MDIC program? How is this helping you in those conversations?
Yeah, it's helping a lot. So just going off what Xander was mentioning with de-risking our path to market, in my discussions with investors, we're always fundraising, and even our recent discussions with strategics, uh, understandably, one of the main concerns is how much have you de-risked the product to date, and what are you doing to de-risk uh, adoption on the market, or once you get to market, just de-risking the entire pathway from start to finish. So for us, having a modernized design quality system, it provides another level of risk mitigation. So being able to say that we have clearly identified the track from user needs to requirements to specs and all the risk and hazards and harms. I'm throwing in all the terms as Andrew's been. It's all important terms. Everything associated with what the what the what our customer is asking for. It de-risks the whole process. So it's a plus. It adds value to our company, and especially from strategics. We've even heard that a common concern when companies or startups are acquired, later down the line, a strategic will realize that they run into challenges because that buying opportunity, that startup did not have a robust quality system in place or design controls in place. Um, so I think it makes it easier from an exit point of view, for example, it makes it easier to hand what JuneBrain has developed over to the hands of an acquirer. Even before then, it makes it easier to transfer everything we've done over to a manufacturer so that they can really continue scaling on the market, building out our product in a way that provides safety, efficiency, just all of the adjectives to make it a robust product and safe product on the market. So it's a great value.
Excellent, excellent. And to build on that, again, Daniel and Joe Daniel, you guys have worked with many different manufacturers, the strategics that are looking to make the acquisitions, as well as the startups and the small companies. So, from your perspective, how does this relate?
Well, I want to take a moment to compliment Xander. I wish, very nice to say that we will require robust quality systems. I think just having a quality system would be it's just tough enough for some folks. So I appreciate raising the bar for what we're discussing here. Uh, and yes, this is absolutely no. Now, obviously, as FDA, we don't really get in the way of talking about the any of the finances or the strategy requiring in all this. But we do, of course, are what we are interested in is the system that gets a product to market, because the control and the ability to have knowledge management and strength behind what's being understood for clinical purpose that ultimately leads to patient benefit are are absolutely clear. And to be fair, there's already a lot going on when you intend to start up a medical device of, or any regulated industry, but really for a medical device, there's so much knowledge to know. It can be very daunting without a very good group of people. Uh, by doing something like this, and this is where the clearinghouse came in and saw this as a very unique opportunity. What this does is it does bring a great question to the front. Does it make sense to look more at implementing digital design early for the purposes of just advancing health overall? And then watching this as we go through this and future webinars, of course. We're very much looking forward to see how this plays out.
And I'll build on what Daniel just talked about, that making that decision early. The more strategics we talk to, and the more startups and incubators that we talk to, it is a timing decision, and those strategics really look for companies. And I applaud JuneBrain and Sam and Xander for your decision to make this decision early, because just listening to your story of being around for 7 years and things like that, you've had to make some very strategic decisions about where to apply your investments. And I think this is I'll call it a bold decision to invest in a digital system early, but it demonstrates the value that others can learn from that. Not only does it recognize from an agency perspective that you're on that right track, you're on that right pathway, you seem to understand the value of technology early on, you're willing to make that investment, whether it's directly or through funding, but you're making that investment in time and commitment. And a lot of companies, those startups and incubators are probably at that same decision phase, but they may decide to do something else. And so there's always this value-based decision, and you guys have certainly made that value-based decision. And we're starting to hear more and more about what strategics are looking for, and then the if not when decisions that some of these incubators and startups need to make. And so, working with MDIC, these startups can get access to not just within quality, but making decisions on any other activity within their system, right? So use of tools and cybersecurity and things like that, that there's value in making those decisions and investments early, because of all of the things that you've addressed in terms of increased competitiveness, increased in multiples, and things like that. So whether you're choosing to do it on your own and you want to be successful in marketing and market access of your product, or you're looking for an acquisition, people are going to look at you differently when you've made the decision, you've made the commitment, and you recognize the value of a quality system. And I like what Xander mentioned, that robust quality system. Not many people think about a robust quality system. Good is good enough, but sometimes if you really are making that investment, the more robust you can be, the more value you'll get out of it. So I think that's a great message.
Yeah. Great discussion. And I'll just add one comment, because we are also working with and speaking with a lot of the strategics out there. And just to echo, this is what we hear too. Jason, what can you guys do to help these MedTech startups build in quality and put the systems in place, so when we make these acquisitions, we're not acquiring products that are going to give us recalls in the market, right? So again, robust, right? That's the key word. And Xander, spot on. Let's keep going. We'll move to the next question. So now we get into the technology, the implementation a little bit from a partnering perspective. Xander, I'll go to you. Again, the question, your partners, and maybe take us through the story of how we got to where we are now.
Sure. Yep. Well, real quick, I'll kind of let Sam kind of start off with the story, and then I can kind of finish it up.
Okay, sure. So JuneBrain was in last year's MedTech Innovator Cohort, which is an outstanding program. I encourage everyone to apply who's in the MedTech world. But part of that program included pairing us with mentors from strategics to help with any specific challenges we were having at the time. So one of ours was getting our software 510K out the door. We were running into a lot of challenges with putting that application together, and part of it was because we didn't have a clear quality system in place yet. So it was a very inefficient process. So we were paired with a mentor from Siemens And he recommended that we look into Siemens has a Polarion software. It's their design quality system platform. So they did a demo for the MTI group. My team was really excited. It was a bit different from other softwares that we had seen before that seemed overkill for us. So we were connected with Jason at CG about implementing Polarion, and he introduced us to the MDIC team because they had just released their Advanced Manufacturing Clearinghouse grant, which would provide funding and the opportunity to collaborate with MDIC and the FDA while we're implementing this system. So it's kind of full circle. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
hand it over to you, Xander.
Sure, yeah. And then I was just gonna mention, so yeah, but when you are choosing a DQS system, it's important to figure out, which product is best for you. You want to look at the features, the prices, see what works for your industry, and then also a implementation partner. You definitely don't want to do this by yourself, especially if no one on the team has ever used the software before. It may look simple, but there's a lot of behind the scenes customization. You want to make sure that works with your business processes. So yeah, no, as Sam mentioned, we ended up going with Polarion. Well, we love it. Again, it has a great again traceability matrix and graphical impact analysis. I really like the V&V testing feature that they have when we get to phase 3. Also area for you to do design reviews and approve documents and deliverables. So we really like the Polarion system from that standpoint. And then with CG, CG actually has a background with working with medical device companies. So that really helped us, especially during the whole implementation process, because when we had like specific questions, they had someone on the team that actually understood the specific, questions and inputs that we were referring to. And then also, I know part of the process, compliance group, they gave us SOPs, which are very helpful. FDA, they do require, quite a few different documents. So we didn't really know where to start from. So we did get a lot of SOPs to kind of get us started. So now, we have risk management plans and design development plans to help us get the ball rolling and track everything. And then also training. I would say training is probably the most important part. So from day one, we got training in again every single area. Again, risk, design inputs, outputs, testing, um, everything, the whole 9 yards. So yeah.
Great. Thanks, Sam and Xander.
Yeah,
So let me back up a little bit,
sure.
and I want to drill in a little bit. We get some questions, so I want to drill in a little bit with some of the questions. So maybe back to the story that Sam told. Joe, we were just talking about this the other day, the importance of the network. Do you want to share any thoughts or comments on, how we
Sure.
got to where
Yeah, happy to. So, I mean, the basis of what MDIC does is through collaboration. And there are slides that we may or may not get to given the time, but it really talks about how MDIC was formed to really bring a network of stakeholders and partners together to talk about what are some of the barriers to access of innovation. And that just naturally promotes a very open, collaborative conversation and discussion and a lot of networking. And Sam mentioned the connection to Siemens and the connection to Jason. Jason and I have known each other from the very beginning of Case for Quality, which Daniel mentioned, which was an FDA initiative back in 2012, which was one of the pillars of MDIC and continues to be a major priority for us. But then from that, conversations with Daniel and others from FDA around there's this gap in MedTech in the adoption of digital technologies, and where there are other adoption in other industries where they've adopted these approaches very, very well. And so we've used those as examples. And so they came to us and said, well, let's put something together. And then through Jason, who has been very close to the advanced manufacturing, we decided let's put this clearinghouse together and this portal of sharing use cases. And I think that's the most effective way across MDIC's program areas of how change is being made, is that everyone's willing to share their use cases. both successful practices and sometimes when things didn't go well, all focused on breaking down barriers. And so this is a perfect example of how Jason came to us, FDA, and we were talking to FDA. We networked together. Jason identified opportunities and some candidates. JuneBrain came to us. We went through the decision portal, and happy to say that they've been a great partner for NameCH. And clearly, from what they're talking about, it's been, I think, so far so good for them. And we're happy to have them sharing their use case, because while we're not taking new projects today, we certainly are open and willing to have anyone who's willing to share their use case on their digital process and their digital path of digital transformation and fill that portal with additional use cases. I think it can only help, and this is a great example of the collaboration that really led to the success of this story.
It's a great summary, Joe. Appreciate it. And one last question then, just to drill in for Xander, and then we'll move to the next question. Again, just paraphrasing what I'm seeing. So again, if you look at the technology, the software itself, and then also at the implementation approach, right? Which this isn't a typical EQMS, right? This is a very focused design, let's focus on design control and risk management approach, right? And then the implementation, the idea there, as I said before, is like we want to take friction out, right? So we're, from a CG perspective, trying to create the implementation and then post-implementation. So all JuneBrain has to do is use the tool, right? Use the software to do what they do best, and that's to develop a great product, right? We're trying to make it as easy as possible for a startup that doesn't have a lot of resources to be able to do this. So Xander, the question, capability-wise, and then the implementation, what are some of the things that you think are going to drive the most value for JuneBrain, right? And you mentioned some of the capabilities and some of the input. Just curious, in your mind, what's going to drive the most value for you as a startup?
Yeah. I would probably say the traceability matrix. The traceability matrix is pretty much, all of our requirements, all of our user needs, our specs, all pretty much all together on one screen. When you go on Polarion, you can kind of see everything connected. So it gives us a very quick overview, so we can understand how the entire system, our subsystems are broken down, and again, if we make any changes, how that will affect other design inputs. So again, we're super excited to go through the rest of our R&D phase and even into phase 3, which is the VMV testing part, because there's also a really nice feature module in Polarion that lets you track the validation and verification test cases for each of your specs. So again, that's going to be very helpful. So we know, which tests failed, which ones passed. The ones that failed, we're gonna have to go back in and resolve it so we can get those successful tests. So yeah, I think the team really likes the traceability matrix. Finally, we can see everything in one place connected.
Yeah, perfect. And go ahead, Sam. I'm sorry.
No, so just a quick add to that too. So even having from like a high up experience or perspective, having that traceability matrix, going forward with our team, we're going to build our remaining product development sprints around the specifications and risks that are in Polarion. So it's already saved us time and money. I knew it would, but I was not expecting it to do so quickly. And I think especially as a startup, we have limited funding. We often have to outsource some of our product development since we have a small team. So even having that traceability matrix, we can pinpoint very specific items, specifications that will be outsourced versus completed in-house. And it really helps even with budgeting from a budgeting point of view.
Awesome. That's great input. And I think these are good teasers for the next webinar when we talk about the implementation and some of the immediate examples of value to what you both said. So last big question, and that's talking about the MDIC program, which Joe has already touched on. But why participate in it? And Joe, if you want to walk us through a little bit more about MDIC and the program, and Daniel, again, this wouldn't exist without the FDA, so feel free to jump in as well.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. And so we'll talk a little bit about who MDIC is, and then we'll talk a little bit about AMTH, and I'll try to go through this quickly so we have enough time for questions. But MDIC is a public-private partnership. We were started in 2012 with the sole mission of accelerating innovation and access to innovation to healthcare professionals and patients. And so when you look at our vision, mission, and action areas, it's really breaks down how we work and what we focus on. And really within the mission, it's breaking down those barriers. And so those barriers come from a variety of stakeholders. And in the next slide, you'll see how our stakeholder list really is distributed between in terms of government, industry, and nonprofits. And so this is just an example of the groups that we work with, where our stakeholders are, and where our strategic partnerships lie. The way we do the work and the way we break down barriers is through the development of resources. If you can go back one slide, Jason, real quick, is through the resources, the participating members. You'll see here, talking about networking earlier, we've got access to over 900 or so subject matter experts that are all volunteers in the work that we generate. And across the various program areas within MDIC that touch quality, manufacturing, design, patient engagement, digital technologies, as well as evidence generation, we have over 60 working groups within our space that touch in a variety of those areas. And so specifically advanced manufacturing, which is the next slide, as I mentioned, there was a conversation with FDA where there was a recognition that there's a gap in the med device space, that companies, small, medium, and large, pick a size, are not necessarily adopting the digital tools that are out there to impact in a positive way variety of aspects of across their total product life cycle. So while we talk about advanced manufacturing, we are talking about design quality. So there are a lot of tools out there that could cut across the total product life cycle. And regardless of the solution or the solution provider, there are so many options out there that people can use to implement a digital tool that can help in their efficiencies, in their digital twins, their digital threads, and there's a lot of out there. And that's what's reflected in the 10 projects that we selected over the last year and a half, thanks to some help from FDA in the selection process. But we have 10 programs or projects, of which JuneBrain is one of them. And in exchange for some of the funding that we were able to provide, we're looking for the use case, which is essentially your story, your case study around the journey. And we're not interested in the technology. We're not interested in what specifications you've changed or what product it applies to. It's really talking about what you've heard so far today, which are decisions that are made internally. JuneBrain is a significant advantage because the CEO has bought into the technology, has bought into this philosophy. So very few objections, very few barriers. But there may be other stories within the 10 examples where that challenge does exist. And so we're trying to collect all of those case studies so that whether you're in the program of one of the 10 or you're interested in learning more about advanced manufacturing clearinghouse, come to us and we're willing to collect your story and share your story, because again, the value of MDIC is our partners, our members, and anyone who comes to MDIC really gets a lot out of those shared use cases and those success stories, as well as some of those stories that, well, it didn't go so well, but we made an adjustment and this is why it went well. So that's really kind of the summary. You'll be seeing some early use cases coming from MDIC starting in March. We've got a lot going on right now, and we've got some we're actually on track for our first use case. This is actually a great webinar opportunity to sort of demonstrate what the use cases will be like. So happy to pass over to Daniel and get his insights as to the value of driving adoption of technology in the MedTech space.
So I love following Joe because he does it all for me. So I really just get the easy job in filling in the details. commonly where we are, on top of me agreeing with everything that Joe has said, because we've been partners in this the whole way through, the big question that's usually said, whether to us directly or more commonly to folks like Joe, and sometimes spoken about within, Sam might hear these kind of questions, is, yeah, but FDA is not really going to buy it. And they're not gonna do this because the burden's too high. FDA is not gonna like that because there's a burden, and we just can't afford to take that risk with the burden. Well, my presence here is precisely to prove the opposite. We are leaning into these kinds of technologies and implementations. We are here to demonstrate and say clearly there's nothing about our regulation or systems or anything that say you can't go and further your technology and advance your technology. In fact, we hope you do. The demonstrated ability is that products get better when you use better tech to make better products. So we're looking to support the notion of that. Are there going to be misunderstandings, bumps, bruises along the way? Of course, it's human. People are human and they implement processes they may not understand. One of the great things about this particular thing is that Sam has recognized up at the front, it takes a robust team of people who understand what you need to do in order to get the job done. So, from the agency's perspective, we want to support the implementation of advanced technology. We partner with MDIC because they have a great network of folks that are looking into it. They have connections, and then we get wonderful cases like JuneBrain. So we get to be able to say we support the tech. Here's a circumstance where this would actually, if all of the cards fall into place, that it will tell a very compelling story from the agency's perspective about how to support, and then we can turn around and say, look, this, we know companies are doing this, and not only we've experienced it firsthand. We talk with these companies all the time, and if you want to talk to these companies to tell them, their experience and learn from them, that's part of the reason why I think Jason was pretty insightful in setting up a webinar series like this. Also for Joe, and setting up the ability, we intend to communicate back what are these experiences, and here, at least for FDA, we'll be able to say, and here's how we support this. That this is not done. These aren't people off on some crazy initiative. No, this is a partnership with FDA sitting at the table to try to lend credence to the idea that, yes, we really do care, and no, we are not trying to stifle the industry.
Excellent. I know we're coming up on time, so let's go to Sam and just hear your perspective of participating.
Well, it's been a great experience. I think that one of the biggest benefits that my team has experienced is the collaboration point of view. So collaborating with MDIC and the FDA. So even with the FDA, we've had just monthly calls with Daniel and Joe and Jason and others from the MDIC team just to pick brains. It's a brain picking session that for us is very valuable. And I think ultimately, what all of this will do for us is, again, make sure that we provide patients with a safe experience. We have a wearable, and it's going on individuals with disabilities. So we have to keep safety, comfort, high performance, high quality at the forefront of everything we're doing. And ultimately, it puts us on a more even playing field with the bigger strategics in our space, which is great from a collaboration perspective, even. But yeah, it's been great. Everything here on the slide is correct.
And I know Daniel just had to drop. Really appreciate Daniel joining. He's actually double booked at a conference and about to give a presentation. So really happy we could have Daniel join for kicking off the series. A question that just came in, and let me put it to all of you, right? Well, maybe more. We'll start with JuneBrain. The question essentially, I'll paraphrase, but from participating in this program, were there any unexpected surprises that whether it be the technology, the implementation, or the MDIC FDA program?
I'd say one, I just mentioned it, it's true again, being able to collaborate directly with MDIC and the FDA has been very beneficial. when we go to these monthly calls, we present updates on the progress of this project, as well as just regulatory questions in general. Many questions that we've tried to understand from regulatory consultants or from the FDA guidances that are posted online, but being able to ask just a simple question and receive a simple answer has been great. I'd say the other most immediate benefit, and surprising that it was so immediate, is how much this impacts our ongoing clinical testing. Because our device is now deployed at clinical sites. So now as patients provide feedback, it's not just going into a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint where we summarize information. It can feed directly back into Polarion, which is what Xander talks about all the time. These come in as risks that we can immediately work to resolve or mitigate, and we can even update requirements or specifications right off the bat as soon as we receive that feedback. So going into the next iteration of our device and before we reach design freeze, I am more confident that we are actually addressing all of the concerns, the majority of the concerns that are out there before we're even in the real world on the market. On the market. So that's a huge benefit.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, just the two big points I took from that, and I'm going to go to Joe here in a minute. But one is this collaboration with the FDA, right? Just and when this program started, look, the funding is nice, that's nice, but my perspective, that to me was the most strategic piece of this, right? Is that collaboration. So, and I'll come back to that. The other one I really like where you just went because it hits on two of the value propositions that Xander talked about early on, right? Was, the velocity of product development, right? And being able to take that customer feedback and really leverage it. And then secondly, is that responsiveness, right? To should things happen in the field, and they will, it happens to everybody, right? How are you able to rapidly go in and understand, see that traceability, right? Full circle to what Xander said earlier about the trace matrix, right? And really understand the impact. So, yeah, so maybe Joe, to the biggest thing, first thing Sam said was collaboration with FDA, and I know, we lost Daniel, but there's a lot of mechanisms, right, that companies can engage with the FDA. I think there's a lot of uniqueness with this program. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, I think there is, and I think that just kind of because Daniel dropped off, I want to be mindful of not to speak on their behalf. But there are those questions that they just can't answer during those calls, and they're very transparent on what they can and can't answer. And so, but they are very helpful in the interactions with companies like JuneBrain, and I think that it's worked really, really well. And if they don't know the answer, they know that they can go off and research it and get back to them, or have Sam contact someone within the agency that can help them. So I think that's been really effective. And again, having FDA as a strategic partner in MDIC is a really great advantage for anyone participating in any of our work, because there is a seat at the table, and the folks from FDA are willing to work with us on, again, breaking down barriers and looking for more effective and more efficient ways. But I do want to, in the 30 seconds or so I might have, I just want to mention that when you think about the portfolio of MDIC and then you think about what JuneBrain is doing, they're a real example of all of the things that we are looking to engage our stakeholders with, whether it's that patient experience, right? It's getting patient perspective early in their design process. It's taking that information and driving it back through their design, change management, all of the change control. And so having a tool to do that, to make them more effective, more efficient, there's so many examples of the road that you're on that others should replicate as close as they could, because there's so much value in what you're doing. And so, I hate to call you a flagship for what it should look like in a small startup or an incubator, but you do represent a lot of the right things and a lot of the things that we talk about. And so as we reach out to more and more small companies, we're looking to sort of use you guys as a stand up of what are some of those decisions early on. Again, and I can't emphasize that enough, but having the agency part of those conversations, as Daniel mentioned, there's some myths out there that there are barriers, and FDA is not bought into this idea of driving change through digital transformation. And clearly, that's clearly a myth. There is no truth to it, and I can sit here and tell you that. I'm comfortable in saying that without Daniel on the phone.
Yeah, excellent. And I know we're a little past, but there is one more question that just came in. I'm going to paraphrase it, but I think it's very relevant to what we're talking about. I'll paraphrase this, but essentially, we're a startup MedTech company. How can we get involved in the MDIC program, the Advanced Manufacturing Clearinghouse, right? And so Joe, I know you've maxed out your 10 projects. If a company wants to get involved, again, that strategic aspect of the collaboration with the FDA, how can they still do it? How do they do it?
Yeah, and we've talked about this in light of the fact that funding isn't available. But if companies are willing to come to us, we're happy to talk to them and set some time up with them and manage them in a similar way in terms of sharing their use case and their story and talking, having these conversations with Daniel and others from his group on the case for quality and AMCH side. So I think people will have my contact information, or they can contact you and you can get a hold of me. We can leverage that network that we talked about. So happy to talk to anyone who's interested. And again, MDIC has I don't want to turn this into an infomercial, but MDIC has a number of areas that startups can leverage. AMCH is one of them. But happy to talk to anyone who's interested in learning more about what we do.
Yeah, excellent. So I know we're a little past. Let's wrap it up. So what's coming next, Xander? Do you want to set up the teaser for the next webinar?
Sure, yeah. So for this webinar on that we're doing now, we kind of talked about the why we wanted to do a DQS. So the next one, we're gonna do a little deeper dive in the actual implementation process. We'll kind of talk about the major milestones that we went through the 3-month process with CG, some lessons learned, some tips that we can give other startups to make sure that the process is smooth for you guys. And then also kind of talk about the immediate benefits. So, over the next 3 months, we're going to be tracking, where we were at before the data quality system and after, and all the different, metrics to the places that we have improved on. So, yeah. So part 2, we'll go do a little deeper dive into those topics.
Awesome. So I know we took questions throughout, but just to, again, set the stage, we'll get into part 2 and part 3. We're probably going to move up. I think things went a little faster with implementation and starting to look at KPIs with MDIC. So we may actually move these up a little earlier than February and June. But and then for additional information, you have JuneBrain's website. You have the compliance group, design control. You can visit, of course, the Advanced Manufacturing Clearinghouse. And then FDA didn't have a chance to talk about it, but they have a new Innovation Team Hub, or iTeam Hub, where they're exploring and educating and evangelizing on various advanced digital design and manufacturing type technologies. So definitely check it out. But feel free to reach out to JuneBrain or MDIC or myself if you have any questions or want more information. Huge thank you to Sam and Xander and Joe and Daniel. Really excited working with you guys and looking forward to part 2 soon.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jason, for pulling this together. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye
Talk
now.
soon. Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.